System 20mm f1.4 Pro lens has big boots to fill as far as I'm concerned. My reasons are twofold. One, it was the first OM System badge lens that came out since the company changed hands, and two, 20mm is probably my favourite focal length for most things. So, how did it get on, and what are my thoughts? This video is sponsored by Squarespace. OM System loaned me this lens for a few weeks while I went to Valencia. They didn't ask or expect a review, they didn't pay me, and I just wanted to share my thoughts. It's like the Windows Explorer of lens reviews. This has been out for quite a few years now. The 20mm f1.4 is a relatively small lens. It weighs 247 grams and it's certainly the smallest pro badged lens in the Olympus/OM System lineup. However, compared to the non-pro primes, it is a little bit more chonky, but that's what you would expect for an f1.4. One thing that has been a pro and a con from other people's opinions on this lens is we have lost the manual focus clutch and the function button. It's a very slim, simple design. The build quality is superb, but you don't get the manual focus clutch anymore, which I know a lot of people really like. For me, I'd rather have a smaller lens, and I didn't really use the manual focus clutch too much anyway. And I also might be in the minority with this, but I hope that this is the style that OM System use going forward for their Pro primes, because as much as I highly rate the Pro primes, so many of them are blooming massive, and in some ways, yes, I know the image quality is superb, but in some ways I think that goes away from what makes Micro Four Thirds unique, and in my opinion that is the size and portability. So, let me know in the comments which way you fall on that, but I think yay for a smaller design personally. So, the good. As a walkabout travel and street photography lens, I found this lens superb. I shot in the wider apertures as much as possible because one, I think, you know, that's where we have to stress test these lenses, and it's probably what a lot of people buy them for. You don't buy an f1.4 lens to shoot at f8 all day. And two, I was blessed with some overcast weather in Valencia, so having a wider aperture was actually quite good most of the time. Let's have a little pixel peep at some 1.4 images. I think to my standards they're certainly very sharp in the middle, and there is a little bit of a fall off to the edges, but I think it's more than acceptable in my opinion. I could happily shoot at 1.4 and know that I'm getting clean, crisp images. If getting absolute pin sharp, clinical sharpness is your goal, stopping it down to 2.8 or f4 will give you amazing results, but I begrudge doing that when it's a 1.4 lens because, you know, it's there. Use it. OM System also say that this has feathered bokeh as well, and there is some physical differences when it comes to feathered bokeh inside the lens. I think the aperture blades are literally feathered, hence the name, and what this gives you is a really smooth fall off. There's a really pleasing non-clinical sort of thing with this bokeh that I find very pleasing. So the subject in these images, they're nice and sharp, and then the fall off is gradual and nice and pleasing to my eye. Very, very well produced bokeh in my opinion. So it's sharp. The bokeh is lovely. It's pretty small. It's weather sealed and metal build, by the way, so it does tick those boxes as well as all the Pro lenses do. What's not to love? Well, I did come across a bit more chromatic aberration that I would have liked to have seen for the price of this lens. Because this lens has a Pro badge, you've got to hold it to a higher standard. And I did find that there was a little bit of purple fringing and chromatic aberrations when lighting got tricky. Now, I will say if you are shooting not at f1.4, it goes away relatively quickly, and if you are shooting in JPEG, it corrects itself in camera and completely disappears. However, this is a Pro lens, and I would also argue that the majority of people buying this would like to shoot mostly at 1.4 and mostly in RAW. So it is something to keep in mind with this lens. It's sharp, the bokeh's lovely, the autofocus is snappy and delightful, but you do have a little bit of chromatic aberration to contend with. You can clean this up in editing, but depending on the scenario, sometimes it's a little bit tricky and sometimes it's just a matter of ticking a box. It really does depend. On the Micro Four Thirds system, it's kind of slim pickings when it comes to 20mm, which makes me sad because, as I say, it's one of my favourite focal lengths. I love it for street photography. I feel like you can get in and amongst the action enough, but you don't feel like you have to be right in people's faces. It's just a perfect little sweet spot for me. So on the Micro Four Thirds system, we've basically got two official options. We have this OM System 20mm f1.4 and the infamous pancake boy, the Lumix 20mm f1.7. Absolutely dinky. This is the Mark II of this lens, which came out in 2013, believe it or not. So it is one of the oldest lenses in the system. It's a classic, but it is not without its flaws. How do they compare and which might be right for you? Now, I didn't get any side-by-side comparisons, unfortunately. The 1.4 has gone back home to OM System already, and I wanted to stick with OM System equipment during my Valencia trip because I was putting the OM3 through its paces. So I can only go off my personal experience with both lenses. The 20mm Lumix really appeals to me personally because it is incredibly small. It looks even perfectly placed on smaller camera bodies. Let me show you. So this is what it looks like on the GM5. Absolutely gorgeous. I think this is probably the most stylish combo, the black GM5 with the black Lumix 20mm. Gorgeous. But looks aside, the Lumix 20mm is a little bit finicky. The autofocus is notoriously bad. So when I put the GM5 into AFC, on the screen, it gives me a warning. It tells me to stick it in AFS. The reason being is the autofocus is really, really bad. I would dare say it's just about unusable for video. I briefly had it on the OM3 at an Avril Lavigne tribute night. The video hunted terribly. A lesson learned on that one. Possibly too many cocktails involved. For photos, the Lumix 20mm is very sharp. At 1.7 is still very generous. And for walking about everyday sort of photography, the autofocus is acceptable. If acceptable is all you need, this is a wonderful lens. And I do turn to it time and time again because it's compact, it's simple, it does the job. However, of course, as you would expect, the 20mm f1.4 from OM System has none of this to deal with. The autofocus is very reliable and very, very fast. It's wonderful in so many ways, but there is a penalty of size and price. It's about 2.5 times more than the Lumix 1.7. Whether or not that is worth it to you depends on what you shoot. If you want to do any video at all, then the OM System is the way to go, believe me. And of course, all this is to be expected. As I said, the Lumix 20mm came out in 2013 and the OM System 1.4 20mm came out in November 2021. So in Micro Four Thirds terms, that's basically brand new. So you would expect all the more modern features in this lens. In terms of autofocus performance, there is no comparison. The OM System wins. In terms of size and weight, of course, the Lumix Pancake wins. In terms of price, I do think the Lumix is better value for money, although it is very blooming old. So you're looking at used stock versus new stock. I think the bokeh on the OM System one is much better indeed. And of course, the OM System one is metal build and weather sealed. So if you were torn between those two, I hope that helps you narrow it down. Both are very good for their own things, but you have to be in the right shooting scenarios in order to get the best out of the Lumix for sure. Whereas the OM System one you could do anything with. If you want something that's smaller again, I would certainly check out the new 17 to 25mm f.8 primes. They look perfect on the OM3. You know, one's a little bit wider, one's a little bit narrower, split the difference. I really do rate the new primes. I have a full review on those, which I'll link in the description if you want to check out more. But just in terms of having reliable, good, fast, tiny primes that are brand new, you know, that's something that we can rejoice about in this corner of camera YouTube. I think they're also worth a consideration as well because you'll get them for much cheaper than this 1.4 Pro. I have to say, when I was using the 1.4 Pro 20mm in Valencia, every night I was raving about my experience with it. I absolutely loved it, and I got some of my favourite photos of the trip with this lens. Not the fire photos, by the way, because I wanted a bit more versatility because I wasn't quite sure what to expect. And I didn't want to be changing lenses when there was soot and everything in the air. So I just stuck with a stock lens for those. And that really surprised me, to be honest, in a very pleasant way. So my overall experience with the 20mm is it's a delight. I'm on the fence about buying my own copy, to be honest, because I'm a bit spoiled, really. I've got the 17 and the 25mm primes. I still have Old Faithful, the little 20mm Lumix. And so I feel like a lot of my boxes are already ticked around this focal length. But if I did find one affordable enough on MPB or similar, I would definitely be tempted because I do think it is one of the gems of the system. It's far from perfect. The chromatic aberration was a bit of a surprise to me, but if you do like 20mm as a focal length like I do, it is sort of a no-brainer, and I'm still very, very tempted. I don't need it, but I want it. Completely, wink wink, unrelated to any products in this video, my mailing list has instant access to lots of different discounts for different brands when you sign up. There's like an exclusive content archive for existing and new mailing list subscribers. So yeah, check that out. But I'm not mentioning that for any reason whatsoever related to this video. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and supporting the channel. It means the world. I've used Squarespace for years and years and years, long before they ever sponsored this channel. If you are looking to have a website of your own, Squarespace is the best place to start. They make building your website super duper simple. You don't need any advanced knowledge whatsoever. If you want to put a photo portfolio up there, offer your services, whatever you're into, even if you just want to blog about your thoughts. It's a corner of the internet that no algorithm can dictate, that is entirely yours, and I find that very appealing. There's loads of cool features there that I use all the time, like my mailing list, which you should all subscribe to. If you would like to get started with Squarespace, you can go to this URL and you can use the code Micro4Nerds for a discount on your first purchase of a website or a domain. So thank you so much to Squarespace for supporting this channel and sponsoring this video. So let me know which you prefer in the comments. Do you think the new 20mm from M.System is worth investing in or not? Let me know. And watch the 17 and 25mm video, and also my Valencia video with the OM3. It's one of my favourite videos I've ever done, and I think it really shows off what Micro Four Thirds is capable of.